Is it fine?
Today's the 8th, then, of
Today is February 8th,
2000.
2003. And I'll give you a little bit of history concerning my mother and father, and where they're from, and some of their background. Now,
Let me move this a little closer so we can get more of you and less of Sherry and Millie.
okay, that's the problem.
Well, I think we just hear them a lot too.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'm on camera.
Yeah, you're on.
My mother, whose maiden name was Patashnik, lived in what is now, at this point in existence, Belarus. At that time, was part of Russia.
White Russia? Is it called White Russia now?
Well, I don't know if it was White Russia, as opposed to Red Russia.
I don't know. There's White Russia. I think that was Belarus, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
sure, it's White Russia.
Okay.
At that
I don't know what
time,
that means.
because nothing became Red Russia until after the revolution.
Okay. I don't know this part of history.
Okay. So, in any case, she lived in a little town called the Shtetl in Yiddish, maybe 100 miles north of Minsk, in Belarus.
Yeah.
The name of the town was Lepland, Leple, as she called it. But I remember seeking it out on a map at one time, Josh, when you thought you might be going in the area. And it's there.
It's still called the same thing?
It's Lepla,
Lepla?
but it's spelled, I think it's Leplen.
Okay.
Lepla, whatever it is, you can't miss it because it's straight north of Minsk. In any case, she was she had 2 sisters and she had 3 brothers.
Yeah.
So it was a total of 3 and 3, 6 children in the family.
You're still with me.
My mother tells a story how it was bitterly cold in the wintertime there often.
Kind of like Wisconsin.
Oh yeah, even a little colder, I suspect. And that in order to keep warm at night, many of them would sleep in some area just above the stove. It was a wooden stove, or it was heated by wood.
They would sleep on a stove to keep warm?
Not on the stove. There was a shelf above the stove,
okay.
and they would sleep there just to keep warm. Anyway, life was poor, and my grandfather, my mother's father, was a carpenter. And, he barely eked out an existence, but a very religious man.
Well, yeah?
And the boys, as well as the ladies, grew up in total orthodoxy of Judaism.
So your mother grew up like that?
Oh yes, oh yes. And so did my uncles, all my uncles.
We'll get back to it.
And eventually, when my mother was about in her early 20s, she and an aunt of hers, an aunt, also, whose last name was Patashnik, came to this country. And they came like all, or most of the immigrants, in steerage. It was a terrible way to travel, but that's how they came. I don't know too many more of the details of their trip here.
So your mother came with her sister and some uncles?
Not with her sister, with her aunt.
Her aunt.
Her sister either came here before or after.
Okay. So she came really, not without her parents.
The brothers already were already here and located in Sheboygan, Wisconsin.
Why did they end up in Sheboygan, Wisconsin?
I have no idea why.
These are your uncles?
My uncles. I have no idea really why they ended up in Sheboygan, except Sheboygan at that time was a very religious community, and all these fellas My uncles were very religious people.
But why did they come to Wisconsin? What did they have someone there? The first someone ended up there?
It was probably, yes, they had people that they called part of their, not mishpacha, but landslide.
Okay.
People that from Belarus that they knew, so they had some contact. My mother, when she came to this country, there's a funny story to tell. Landed in Ellis Island with her aunt, and neither one of them spoke a word of English, of course.
What was her name? Your mother?
My mother's name was Dora.
Dora Patashna.
Yeah, Dora. Dina.
Nina?
Dina.
Dina. In English, it was Dora.
Dora. And her Hebrew name, I don't know exactly what it was, but I can imagine it was Deborah or something like that. In any case, when my aunt and my mother got on the train, they were hungry. They hadn't eaten for a few days, on the ship. And they had packed some food to take along, but it was long gone before they reached New York. So they got on the train, headed for Chicago, and then for Sheboygan, Milwaukee, Sheboygan. Now, at that time, the train...
What year was this, by the way? You know when she came to the States?
I don't know exactly.
Approximately?
Approximately, I would say I was about... Well, I think this was about 1915, 14.
How old was she?
About 20.
So she probably always had an accent when she spoke to you. She spoke in English with an accent always.
Well, she spoke in Yiddish.
Well, for the most part.
The Yiddish I know
was from her.
From her and my father.
So you spoke Yiddish at home?
A lot of the Yiddish at home, and some English. Eventually, more English.
Yeah.
My father had a different story to tell, and he was somewhat educated in English. But we'll get back to that when I tell you about my father.
Okay.
In any case, my mother went on the train, and at that time they had candy butchers who used to walk down the aisle. You may not remember it, but I do remember it. They used to walk down the aisle and they'd toss you a package of chips or a package of peanuts or whatever, a banana, an apple, and if you wanted it, you'd eat it. If you didn't want it, you'd return it to him.
So he would throw food at you and you have to decide if you wanted it or not.
Yeah, that's the idea, absolutely. And if you wanted it, you paid for it, and he told you how much it was. So anyway, my mother received a banana from the candy butcher. Now she's very hungry. She doesn't know
where this is going.
She has no idea why he threw it at her or why he handed it to her, as the case may be. And so she ate the banana. That's the logical thing to do. Now the butcher comes back and he's holding out his hand and he tries to communicate. He wants whatever the price was. And my mother, who told me the story, indicates she doesn't know what he's talking about. Doesn't understand him at all. He finally gave up and went his way and lost the banana.
Okay.
He lost the banana, my mother had the banana, and she wasn't that hungry. In any case, she ended up in Sheboygan. And when she ended up in Sheboygan, she also had a person who was from the old country that she knew in Milwaukee, and he was a tailor by the name of Cohn, not Itche, but Cohn on 6th and Walnut. I know, I was in his place. It'll come to me.
Okay.
And Cohn...
Keep going.
She would come and visit him, and he was a married man, but he would also look for a husband for her.
Shidduch.
Setting
them up, yeah.
Sure. So after some period of time, I guess she was here the best part of a year, maybe 9 months. Uh, my father, who also knew the tailor, uh, came to him, they were talking, and my father, who was already married and had a daughter, and whose wife...
Your father was married?
Yeah, my father was married, and he had a daughter, and his wife had died in the First World War flu epidemic, where, in fact, she's buried. His first wife is buried on Saba Cemetery in Milwaukee.
So she died in the States?
She died in the States.
And he had a daughter?
He had a daughter with her. They lived in Boston.
Okay.
You know, and they lived in Boston. They were married in Boston, and something brought them to Milwaukee. I think it was probably the industry we had here, because he did work for Ellis Chalmers for a while, and a couple
For who?
of... My father.
Who did he work for?
Ellis Chalmers. It's a big engineering company. It was one of the biggest in the country.
But he wasn't an engineer, was he?
No, he was a plain worker.
Yeah, I thought he worked at the zoo.
He did that later.
Okay.
No, but I'm telling you the history of why he came.
Okay, to Milwaukee.
All right.
Employment.
So anyway, when he came, he and his wife caught the flu in the First World War, and many people, I think, maybe up to 1 million people died with the flu epidemic. So anyway, she died.
I think more even, a lot more, I think.
What?
Millions and millions.
Yeah, probably.
But how, if she caught the flu in World War I, influenza, how did she end up dying in the States?
They were living here. They were living.
She caught it in the States. Okay, yeah, during World War I.
Okay. Yeah, she caught it in the States. You know, they moved from Boston to Milwaukee for probably employment opportunities for my father. But I'll tell you how he got here and the whole thing when I talk about him. In any case, he had a daughter. My sister Lillian was just a few years old, maybe 4 years old, and here's this man, my father. It's very hard to cope with it. So Cohn, the tailor, introduced him to my mother. They went out a few times. They decided to get married.
How old was he?
My father?
Yeah.
How old was he?
Was he older than your mother?
Only about by maybe a year or two.
Okay, so we're about the same age.
Yeah. And so they got married, and my mother raised my sister Lillian.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, my brother Bill and I never considered her a half-sister.
She was your sister.
She's absolutely a full sister, because you know, we never
Correct.
talked about half-sisters.
Yeah.
You know, this came up later, you know, people asking about it. So she wasn't your sister. Well, she was my sister, and I never, and she was a very, did you ever meet her?
Maybe when I was a baby, nothing that I recall.
A very, very dear person, one of the most intelligent people I've ever met.
When did she pass away?
She passed away in 1900, and I don't know the date, when she was 65 years old. And she passed away from cancer in, I don't know, but I suspect in the lungs.
She was a smoker?
Not especially. And, but her husband was a smoker. So, you know, you never know the reason.
Yeah, you know.
Anyway, a very courageous person, highly knowledgeable in foreign languages, knowledgeable in literature, knowledgeable in music, in poetry, and the whole business. And only had 2 years of high school, because my father was from the old school in that regard. He didn't feel a woman needed to have a high school degree. The boys did, but not the girls. And she had 2 years of it because my mother wanted her to have 2 years of high school at least. So she had that. And when she died, And it was sort of in Houston, because she married a man who was from Dallas, Ben Kuhn. And
Oh, okay. Now I see how it all ties together.
okay,
'Cause I know of Ben and I've met Ben.
yeah, and Ben, and so she went to the hospital in Houston, which is supposed to be a high-grade hospital, and for treatment. And when she died, she willed her body for medical research, and then to be cremated. And she is also buried, the ashes are buried at Anshel Babat's. No, she couldn't get in there. She at Spring Hill Cemetery, where your soft is buried, where I will be. And my father was also cremated, by the way. My father wouldn't have it any other way.
Why?
Well, to put it bluntly, he said, I don't want to be in the ground and have the worms eat me. And he said to me, Alex, you're the oldest son. And as the oldest son, it'll be your responsibility to see them cremated. And if you don't cremate me, I guarantee I'm going to come back and haunt you. So he didn't give me much choice.
Yeah, you had to do it.
Yeah, it didn't give me much choice.
So
My sister's cremation, by the time they're through with you in the medical school, there isn't much left. But they could bury you, I suppose.
I'm not sure this tape, how much time it has on it.
Okay.
It looks like it's already gone through a good chunk of it, and I only have this tape. So let's talk a little bit about your father too, and how he came.
My father came from Bialystok, Poland. At that time, it was still part of Russia, but it's in Poland, Bialystok, big city.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Jewish people.
Yeah.
And his father was a Melamed, taught Hebrew, taught kids how to become bar mitzvah and all that business. And my father's brother, Abe, was a communist. He was a Bolshevik. And my grandparents knew that the Tsar police were after him, and they bought a ticket and wanted to send him secretly out of the country. But being a Bolshevik and devoted to the communist cause, he wouldn't go.
That's why they bought him the ticket to America?
Yeah.
Ah.
My uncle bought my father.
Yeah, your uncle.
My father.
Yeah, I know.
But my uncle wouldn't go. He didn't care. He was there to fight the cause to the bitter end. So my father, who was 13 years old at the time, or just had been bar mitzvahed, said, hey, look, I'll take the ticket, or words to that effect.
So he went to America at age 13?
At age 13.
By himself?
By himself.
Unbelievable. Let's stop this for a minute.
Okay.
So we can give...
So you can ask me, I have to get something to drink.
Okay,
too.
I'll get it for you.
Why don't you get me some seltzer?
And I'll get rid of Shoshana.
Take Shoshana with you. Shoshana, you heard the whole story? I hope you remember.
Hope you're listening. Hope you're listening. Hi, Saba. Hi, Saba. Hi.
She's used to me now. Hello.
Watch, she's gonna rip the skin off. Hi, Saba. Hi, Saba.
She is one cutie.
She is a cutie.
Oh, you're sweet thing.
So watch out, she's gonna pull on your face really hard.
I don't care.
Motek, don't do that.
It's okay. I can handle it.
She's gonna grab something she's looking for. Move on.
Okay, recording now. My father, who was just 13 years old and just been bar mitzvah, apparently had enough intelligence to understand, as he tells me the story, that living in Poland, in a very isolated, although large Jewish community, there was no future there for these people. He saw the anti-Semitism all around him, and he felt he wanted to leave the country and make a new life for himself. He had no contacts here at all when he came at 13. how he got here, he got through steerage. You know, it was the cheapest ticket you could buy. And because as a Muhammad, my grandfather certainly was not a rich man. Although I must tell you, I've seen pictures of their graves in Bialystok, and the name Reuben was always Reuben. It has never been changed.
Yeah, I saw those pictures.
Yeah, all right. In any case,
It still should still be there today,
Yeah,
unless
it
they
should-
destroyed the cemetery.
it
but-
should be, but who knows? But anyway, so he came here, and the only contact he had, his folks told him that he had that there was a distant uncle, second uncle or something, who owned a lighting fixture, sort of. It was a wholesale place in Bayonne, New Jersey. So he went to Bayonne from New York. After he arrived, went through Ellis Island, he went to Bayonne, looked up this man. The man said, well, I don't need anybody, but you can work for me. And they worked him from early in the morning till late at night. And all he got for it was, that might be Shuvi.
Hello there.
All he got for
I
it
was confused.
was his sleeping quarters and food.
But that's me today.
That's it?
Yeah,
No money?
I'm okay.
none that I am aware of. If it was very minimal.
Yeah.
And they worked him probably from 7 in the morning, if I remember the story, to 7 at night.
I tasted one
In the place. Well, he was happy to be here, and it was okay.
Did he miss? I mean, did he tell you how he missed his family, or if he was comfortable?
Well, he wasn't comfortable in that surrounding, but he realized in order to get out of it, he'd have to learn how to speak English. And so, after 7 o'clock, he went to night school and studied English. So he had a reasonable command of English. He was
Okay.
able to read a newspaper, and he was able to converse in English, not to the same degree perhaps that you and
What
I.
year did he come over? You know?
Well, I would say, I don't know exactly, but it was before World War II, before World War I, because
1907,
I would,
8.
no, it wasn't,
Remember what year he was
about
born?
1910 or 11, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, that he came over. And and eventually he was able to find a job with some some monetary return. And then he had some relatives up in Boston. He went to Boston. He met his wife, who subsequently died, and they had their child, Leah, and the employment in Boston for some reason wasn't that great. He heard of the employment opportunities in Milwaukee with its large industry. Milwaukee had great industry at one
How
time.
you doing, Saba?
Fine show.
It's
We're
good seeing
recording.
you. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll have to erase that. Just kidding. So I was telling a
Okay.
story. If you want, you can come listen.
In 1 second, I'll join you.
So you came to Milwaukee.
So he came to Milwaukee, and at that time he already had his daughter, my sister, and his wife caught the flu, died, and he's seeking a wife because of many reasons, the usual reasons, and also the additional reason that he had a daughter
Yeah.
that would be looked after. And
So they met.
they met, they got
home.
married.
And they had 3 kids. You had? They had 3 kids. 2 kids. You 2. You and Bill.
That's right.
And what years were you both born? What years?
I was born 1917.
Okay.
Bill was born 1920.
1920.
1920. And my father, after World War I, they shut down some of the manufacturing in Alice Chalmers, and he apparently was laid off. So he decided, like many of the other immigrants to this country to go into some peddling. And he wasn't good at business. My father was not good at business. He was a good man.
Yeah.
Don't misunderstand that. But he didn't have a, he wasn't concerned about business. He wasn't concerned about making money. He enjoyed other things in life. To wit, he'd be secretary of organizations, he'd visit people in the hospital, he'd do all those things. Now, he was highly trained in Judaism, you know, because his father was a teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But they weren't religious at all.
but he was not a religious person. He was a socialist.
When did he become not religious? When did he become... I mean, he grew up wearing a yarmulke when he was a kid?
Oh, absolutely.
So when he came to the States, or was it before that?
When he came to the States.
Took off his kippah by himself and stopped doing Shabbat, everything?
When he, yes, basically that's it. He just decided he would cast it aside. Not that it ever left him, because he became religious later in life. Again, knew every prayer by heart and then some.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so it was always part of him. But as a socialist, he didn't think it was an important thing.
Yeah, so he was so... Everyone, you also, didn't you become a socialist or communist? You joined the Communist Party?
I never joined the Communist Party, but I was socialist.
Did that cause problems back in the day because of it, people, the Red Scare and all that?
It didn't make me popular with a lot of conservative people, but I believed in it.
Yeah.
So this was it. I joined the Young Socialist Party.
Okay, you did join that, yeah. Sherry's joined it recently.
Socialist.
Yeah, they send us a bunch of junk mail.
Yeah, well, but whatever it is,
It's a nice concept, but as we see...
it's a good concept. You know, it's in practicality, it may not work out, but it's a good concept. But we're recording?
Yeah, we're recording.
All right. So I want to tell you more about the situation.
You could tell also down to you and the war and Savta, because we'd like to get a little of that too.
All right, I want to tell you that my grandfather on my father's side, my grandmother on my father's side never came to this country.
Yeah.
So I never met them. But my grandfather on my mother's side
Yeah.
did come to this country. His name was David. And
On your mother's side, what was his last name?
Potashnik.
Oh, he was Pata...
Josh,
Okay, yeah, okay.
And
Yeah, Millie?
can we talk?
Yeah, you can talk. Going back.
so I did meet him as a very, where did I first, my first recollection of my grandfather on my mother's side, David, was when my brother Bill was having his Brit. I was about 3 years old.
Oh, you remember that?
And I remember it because he came in the hallway of our kitchen on 14th and Walnut in Milwaukee to shush me up, you know, I'm having a great time, I'm making noise.
Yeah.
They're having the Brit.
Wait, so Savta's maiden name was?
Elkin.
Elkin, okay.
E-L-K-I-N-D.
Can you give us a little bit about her family?
Uh,
As much as you know?
Yeah, as much as I know. Her family, both the mother and father, came from Russia. My mother-in-law, Katie, her Hebrew name was Gittel, and totally not religious,
Yeah.
either one of them. And her maiden name was Rosen. My father-in-law, Solomon, Shlomo. I know that from the gravestones.
Mm-hmm.
And
How did they end up in Milwaukee?
I think their whole, like a lot of other people, the landslide, the people from their area were in Milwaukee, so they knew some people.
Okay.
there.
Where did they come from in Russia?
I don't know that,
Okay.
but I know that my father was a very solid communist.
Yeah.
My father-in-law, not
Yeah.
my father. My father was a socialist. They always.
Savta never looked like she was Russian. She didn't have the features of, some Russian features.
Well, but they were Jewish. Who
Yeah.
knows what?
Yeah, who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, who knows? Savta was not, they were Russian only by nationality. They were
Yeah.
basically
Yeah.
Jewish.
What year was Safta born and where? She was born in Milwaukee?
She was born in Milwaukee.
In what year?
Well, she was born 1900 and about 21 or 2.
Okay.
Hi, Saba.
Hi.
We want to interrupt this broadcast to give you a kiss.
Hi. So anyway,
It's really good.
I want to tell you, my mother-in-law was the most very, very good-looking woman. And my father-in-law was a big, he earned a lot of money. People liked him. He had a history of drinking too much, and that cost him